The stars had never looked so beautiful. Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn, watching the light of distant suns paint the darkness. Behind her, 200 warships waited in formation. Around her, the voices of her crew filled the air with quiet confidence. They believed in their mission. They believed in their allies. They believed they would come home. They were wrong about everything. The year was 2347, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years. Earth had joined as a junior member, eager to prove itself worthy of standing beside the older species. The Council had 12 members, each one ancient, each one powerful. They looked at humans the way adults look at children playing with dangerous toys. But they accepted Earth's soldiers, Earth's resources, Earth's loyalty. Now the Void Swarm threatened everything. The swarm was a parasitic hive mind, billions of creatures sharing one terrible intelligence. They consumed worlds, absorbed populations, and grew stronger with every victory. The Council needed warriors willing to die on the front lines. They chose humanity. Admiral Park commanded the Third Earth Fleet. General Taiho Kim stood beside her, his face calm despite the danger ahead. Behind them waited 200,000 soldiers, the finest Earth had ever produced. Among them was Captain Junho Park, Yuna's younger brother. He had joined the fleet against her wishes, but she could not deny his skill or his courage. "The Council forces are in position," reported her communications officer. "Admiral Voss of the Helix Dominion confirms his fleet will support our left flank. The Thalosian ships will cover our retreat if needed." Una nodded. The plan was simple. Human ships would strike the swarm's forward position while Council forces attacked from the sides. Together they would crush the enemy at Orion's Gate and save 3 colony worlds from destruction. "All ships prepare for combat," Una commanded. "Today we show the galaxy what humans can do." Battle began well. Human weapons tore through swarm vessels with brutal efficiency. Una watched her crews perform with precision, pushing forward through waves of enemy fighters. The swarm fought back hard, but humanity held its ground. Then everything changed. "Admiral," her sensor officer said, his voice suddenly tight. "The Helix fleet is... they're withdrawing." Una turned sharply. "What?" On the tactical display, she watched in disbelief as the Helix Dominion ships turned away from the battle. One by one, they activated their hyperspace drives and vanished. "The Thalosians are leaving too," General Kim said quietly. "All Council ships are retreating." "That's impossible. We're winning." "Why would they?" The truth hit her like a physical blow. They weren't retreating from defeat. They were retreating by choice. The Council had planned this. They had used humanity as bait, a distraction to draw the swarm's attention, while the Council... Now species escaped to safety. Her fleet was alone, surrounded, doomed. "Admiral, the swarm is changing formation," her tactical officer reported. "They're focusing everything on us." Una forced her mind to work, despite the horror flooding her chest. "All ships, emergency retreat. Get our people out now." But there was nowhere to run. The swarm had closed every escape route. Una watched her ships die one by one, their signals winking out like candles in a storm. She heard the screams of her soldiers through the communication channels, heard their calls for help that she could not answer. The Eternal Dawn took heavy damage. Fire spread through lower decks. Crew members died at their stations. General Kim organized damage control while Una fought to save whoever she could. "Junho," she whispered, searching the tactical display for her brother's ship. She found it just in time to watch it explode under swarm fire. The light of its destruction burned into her eyes, into her memory, into her soul. They fought for 6 more hours. When it was over, 80% of the Third Fleet was gone. Una escaped with barely 40 ships, limping through a gap in the swarm's formation that appeared only because the enemy was too busy feeding on the dead. The journey home took 3 weeks. Una did not sleep. She could not close her eyes without seeing her brother's ship burning, without hearing the voices of soldiers begging for rescue she could not provide. On Earth, President Sora Han waited for answers. She was a small woman with steel in her spine and ice in her heart. When the first reports arrived, she gathered her advisors and demanded explanations. When the full truth became clear, she dismissed everyone and sat alone in her office for a very long time. The council's message arrived the next day. The Arbiter, leader of the council, appeared on screen with an expression of false sympathy. His translated words were smooth and cold. Humanity's sacrifice will be remembered. Your species served its purpose. The council has designated new territory for your surviving population.
Oh.
He transmitted coordinates. Not for a planet. Not for a system. For a single barren moon at the edge of explored space. A rock with no atmosphere, no resources, no future. The council thanks you for your service, the Arbiter concluded. Your compliance with relocation will be appreciated. The transmission ended. President Han stared at the blank screen. Her hands trembled. Her breath came quick and shallow. Around her, the weight of betrayal pressed down like the gravity of a dying star. 50 years of loyalty. 50 years of service. 50 years of believing that humanity could earn respect through dedication and sacrifice. All of it meant nothing. The council had never seen humans as partners. They saw them as tools, useful until broken, then discarded. Slowly, President Han stood. She walked to the window and looked out at the cities of Earth, at the billions of people who did not yet know how thoroughly they had been abandoned. Her hands stopped trembling. Her breathing steadied. Something hard and cold formed in her chest, something that had no name, but would soon shape the future of the galaxy. They think we will break, she said to the empty room. They think we will beg for mercy, accept our fate, and die quietly on that worthless rock. She turned from the window. Her eyes held no tears, only fire. They have made a terrible mistake. 5 years passed. The galaxy forgot about humanity. The council species celebrated their survival, built monuments to their wisdom, and told stories about the primitive creatures who had served so usefully as shields against the swarm. Sometimes they wondered if any humans still lived on that distant moon. Mostly, they did not care. They should have cared, deep beneath the surface of Earth. In laboratories hidden from council sensors, humanity rebuilt itself. The betrayal had united the planet in ways that centuries of peace never could. Every nation, every culture, every person shared the same memory of abandonment. They channeled their grief into purpose. Their anger became fuel. Dr. Hanley worked 20 hours a day in his research facility. He was a thin man with tired eyes and hands that never stopped moving. Before the betrayal, he had studied theoretical physics for curiosity. Now he studied it for revenge. The council species use hyperspace travel, he explained to President Han during one of her visits. They fold space to move between points. It is fast, but it is predictable. We can do better. He showed her the equations on his tablet, numbers and symbols that meant nothing to her, but everything to the future. Dimensional folding, he said. We do not move through space. We step outside of it. We can appear anywhere, instantly, without warning. The council will never see us coming. President Han nodded slowly. How long until it works? 1 year. Maybe 2. You have one. Engineer Mireille Choi designed the ships that would carry humanity's vengeance. She was young, barely 30, but the fire in her burned hotter than anyone twice her age. Her family had lived on one of the colony worlds the council abandoned. She did not know if they were alive or dead. The uncertainty drove her forward. Council ships are built for defense, she told her team. They are cautious. They are careful. They expect enemies to behave the same way. She pulled up designs on the main screen. Our ships will be different. They will attack without stopping. They will adapt in the middle of battle. They will never retreat. The new warships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Their armor could repair itself. Their weapons could switch between modes instantly. Their computers learned from every engagement and became smarter. Deadlier, more efficient. Admiral Unipark trained the soldiers who would crew these vessels. The scars on her face had healed, but the scars inside had only grown deeper. She pushed her recruits beyond their limits, demanding perfection, accepting nothing less. The council thinks humans are weak, she told them during one training session. They think we are emotional, undisciplined, easy to manipulate. Her voice dropped to something cold and sharp. They were right about one thing. We are emotional. We remember every face we lost, every name, every voice that called for help we could not give. She walked among them, meeting their eyes one by one. That memory is not weakness. It is strength. It is why we will never stop, never forgive, never forget. General Dohenbeek developed the tactics that would turn human fury into military advantage. He was an older man, patient and methodical, but the betrayal had changed something in him too. His strategies were no longer about defense or protection. They were about destruction. The Council expects wars to follow rules, he explained to his officers. They expect negotiations, treaties, opportunities to surrender. We will give them none of these things. When we strike completely. We leave nothing standing. We leave no doubt about what happens to those who betray humanity. On the anniversary of Orion's Gate, President Han addressed the world. Every screen on Earth showed her face. Every ear heard her words. 5 years ago, we trusted aliens who saw us as nothing more than useful animals. We sent our children to die for an alliance that was never real. We believed that loyalty would earn us respect. She paused, letting the silence fill with memory. We were fools. But we have learned. We have built. We have prepared. And now, the galaxy will learn what happens when humanity stops asking for acceptance. Her voice hardened into steel. They called us primitives. They called us violent. They called us dangerous. Perhaps they were right to fear us. Because today, we stop seeking their approval. Today, we build our own future. And anyone who stands in our way will discover just how dangerous humans can be. The first fleet launched that night. 500 ships slipped through dimensional rifts, appearing without warning in Council space. There were no declarations of war, no demands, no negotiations, just silence and then fire. The Helix Dominion, the species whose fleet had first abandoned humanity at Orion's Gate, lost their capital world in 6 hours. Admiral Park led the assault personally. She watched their cities burn with cold satisfaction. When their leaders begged for mercy, she played them a recording of their own words from 5 years ago. Humanity's sacrifice will be remembered, the recording said. Your species served its purpose. Now you serve yours, Park replied, and ended the transmission. News of the attack spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. The Council species could not believe it. Humanity was supposed to be finished, broken, dying on a worthless rock. Instead, they had returned with weapons no one understood and fury no one could stop. Fear followed the news. Fear changed everything. The message was simple, repeated on every frequency, in every language. The humans survived. The humans remember. The humans are coming, and they were only getting started. The war spread across 3 years and 1,000 worlds. Humanity did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for something deeper, something that could not be measured or counted. They fought so that no species would ever dare betray them again. They fought so the galaxy would remember their names. Commander Yunji Kong led the assault on the Thelosian homeworld. The Thelosians were telepaths, creatures with large heads and small bodies who prided themselves on their mental abilities. During the abandonment at Orion's Gate, had captured human survivors and used their powers to torture them for entertainment. They had pulled memories from screaming minds and shared the pain among themselves like wine at a feast. Young Ji had seen the recordings recovered from Thelosian databases. She had watched humans die in agony while aliens laughed. The images stayed with her during the long journey to their world. Her fleet arrived at dawn local time. She opened communications to the planet below. This is Commander Kang of the Earth Dominion Fleet, she announced. Your military has 1 hour to surrender. Your civilians have that same hour to evacuate to designated safe zones. After that time, we will begin bombardment. The Thelosian government refused to surrender. They believed their mental powers could protect them. They believed they could reach into human minds and twist them, break them, turn the invaders against each other. They were wrong, human scientists had developed mental shields during the 5 years of preparation. The Thelosian attacks bounced off like raindrops off stone. Yunji felt them trying to enter her thoughts and smiled grimly at their failure. When the hour ended, her ships opened fire. The ancient Thelosian cities, monuments to thousands of years of civilization, burned under human weapons. Yunji watched the destruction from her command chair, her face showing nothing. "I take no pleasure in this," she recorded in her personal log that night. "But they must understand. What they did to our people, we can do to them 100 times over. And we will, until they learn that human lives have value. Until they learn that human pain has consequences." Across the galaxy, Captain Sun Wuzhang led a different kind of mission. He was younger than most commanders, quick and clever, chosen specifically for operations requiring precision rather than force. His target was the Galactic Council itself. The Council's central station orbited a neutron star, protected by layer upon layer of defenses. No fleet could approach without being destroyed. But Sun Wu did not bring a fleet. He brought 50 soldiers and a single-dimensional transport. They appeared inside the station without warning, bypassing every defense. By the time the alarm sounded, they had already reached the council chambers. Sun Wu stood before the Arbiter, the alien who had signed humanity's death warrant, and pointed his weapon at the creature's head. "Do you remember us?" Sun Wu asked quietly. The Arbiter trembled, his gray skin turning pale. "Please, we can negotiate. We can offer compensation. Compensation." Sun Wu laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Can you bring back the 160,000 soldiers who died at Orion's gate? Can you return the children who lost parents? The parents who lost children? Can you undo the screams that still echo in our memories?" The Arbiter fell to his knees. "Mercy, I beg you." "Show mercy? Did my people beg?" Sun Wu stepped closer. "We had translators. You understood our language. You understood the word please. You understood help us. You heard their cries as you turned your ships around. And you left anyway." He did not kill the Arbiter. Instead, he forced the creature to record a full confession of the Council's betrayal. Every detail, every vote, every species that had supported the decision to sacrifice humanity. When it was complete, Sun Wu broadcast the confession on every frequency in the galaxy. The confession changed everything. Species that had remained neutral suddenly saw the Council for what it truly was. Minor powers that had feared Council retaliation now saw weakness. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia began to crack, and humanity drove wedges into every fracture. But the greatest threat remained. The Void Swarm, the enemy humanity had been sacrificed to slow, had not disappeared. While the Council cowered and humanity conquered, the Swarm had grown stronger. They had consumed 12 Council worlds and were spreading faster than anyone. Predicted President Han received the request for help with cold amusement. The Council ambassadors groveled before her, their previous arrogance completely erased by terror. They begged Earth to save them from the very threat they had once used humanity as a shield against. "5 years ago, you left us to die so you could survive," Han said, looking down at the creatures kneeling before her throne. "Now you want us to die for you again?" "Please," the ambassadors whimpered. "The Swarm will consume everything, including your worlds." "Our worlds?" Han leaned forward, her eyes sharp as glass. "We have no worlds anymore, remember? You gave us a barren moon. We built everything we have from nothing, while you watched and laughed." The ambassadors had nothing to say. Their silence confirmed every accusation. Han let them suffer in that silence for a long moment. Then she spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of 100,000 graves. "We will stop the Swarm. Not because you asked. Not because you deserve saving. Not because we have forgiven or forgotten. We will stop them because we refuse to let anything threaten what we have built." She stood, tall and terrible. "And when the Swarm is destroyed, we will rule what remains. Not the Council. Not any alliance of frightened aliens. Humanity forever." The war against the Swarm would be the final test. The conquest of the Council was just the beginning. Now humanity would face an enemy that felt no fear, showed no mercy, could not be negotiated with. Admiral Park prepared her fleets. The greatest battle was yet to come. The Void Swarm was not like any enemy humanity had faced before. Council species could be frightened, negotiated with, or broken. The swarm knew nothing but hunger. It consumed, it grew, and it spread. Billions of creatures shared one vast intelligence, learning from every battle, adapting to every weapon. The Council had spent centuries trying to contain them and failed. They believed the swarm could not be stopped, only delayed. Humanity disagreed. Admiral Una Park gathered her commanders in the war room of her flagship. Holographic maps showed the swarm's territory, spreading like infection across the galaxy. Dozens of worlds had fallen. Trillions of lives had been absorbed into the hive mind, their bodies transformed into new soldiers for the enemy. The Council fought defensively, Park told her officers. They built walls. They established lines. They hoped the swarm would eventually stop. Her finger traced the boundaries on the map. We will not make that mistake. We attack. We push. We give them no time to adapt, no space to recover. General Kim nodded slowly. The swarm learns from every engagement. How do we stay ahead of their adaptation? By adapting faster. Park activated another display. Our ships already learned during battle. Our tactics change hour by hour. We fight like humans have always fought. Not with rigid plans, but with creativity, aggression, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Dr. Jiwon Shin presented the weapon that would make victory possible. She was a xenobiologist who had lost her entire family during the betrayal. Her parents and 3 sisters who had lived on one of the abandoned colony worlds. The swarm had consumed them. Now she would destroy the swarm. The hive mind depends on neural connections between all its creatures, she explained. Break those connections, and the swarm becomes nothing more than billions of mindless animals. Easy to destroy. She showed them the results of her research. A biological agent designed to attack the swarm's neural network. It spread through their bodies like disease, severing the links that made them dangerous. One problem, she admitted. The agent must be delivered to a central node, what we call a core structure. The swarm protects these nodes with everything they have. Park studied the data. How close must we get? Physical contact. The warhead must detonate inside the structure. Silence filled the room. Everyone understood what that meant. Someone would have to fly directly into the heart of swarm territory, through endless waves of enemies, and deliberately crash into the most heavily defended target in the galaxy. Park nodded once. I will lead that mission personally, Admiral. You cannot, General Kim began. I will. This is not a discussion. Her voice left no room for argument. My brother died because I could not save him. I will not ask anyone else to take a risk I am unwilling to take myself. The assault began 3 weeks later. Humanity's combined fleets attacked the swarm across a dozen fronts simultaneously, drawing their attention, stretching their defenses. For weeks, the battle raged without clear winner. Human ships died by the hundreds. Swarm creatures died by the millions. The galaxy had never seen destruction on such a scale. Admiral Park waited for the perfect moment. When the swarm concentrated their forces to defend against a major assault, she led a small strike force through a gap in their lines. 30 ships, moving fast, striking hard, refusing to stop for anything. The crimson nebula glowed around them as they approached the core structure. Swarm defenders swarmed from every direction, their numbers blocking the stars. One by one, Park's escort ships fell, sacrificing themselves to keep her path clear. Admiral, your shields are failing, her tactical officer reported. Hull integrity at 40%. Engines losing power. Park gripped her command chair as another impact shook the vessel. Hold course. We cannot survive another hit. Hold course. Through the viewport, she could see the core structure now. It was massive, organic, pulsing with the terrible life of the hive mind. Billions of connections spread from it like veins. Carrying thoughts and commands to every swarm creature in the sector, her ship was dying. Fire spread through lower decks. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches. Half her crew was already gone, but they were close. So close, Admiral. We need to retreat, her second-in-command urged. There is still time. My brother did not get to retreat. Park's voice was calm, almost peaceful. Neither did the 160,000 soldiers who trusted me. Neither did the children on the colony ships who called for help that never came. She looked at the core structure filling her screen. Today, I keep my promise to them. She activated the ramming sequence. Her ship accelerated toward the target, engines burning beyond their limits. The swarm tried to stop her, but they were too late. The Eternal Dawn, the same ship that had survived Orion's Gate, struck the core structure at full speed. The explosion was visible from light years away. Dr. Shin's weapon detonated at the heart of the hive mind, spreading through the neural network like wildfire. Across 3 sectors, swarm creatures suddenly went silent. Their connections severed, shared intelligence shattered. Rescue teams found Admiral Park in the wreckage 2 hours later. She was barely alive, her body broken, her ship in pieces around her. But she was breathing. General Kim was there when she woke in the medical bay. His face showed exhaustion and relief in equal measure. "We won," he said quietly. "The swarm's central intelligence is destroyed. The remaining forces are scattered and mindless. We're eliminating them now." Perk closed her eyes. "How many did we lose?" 40,000. A tear escaped down her scarred cheek. "Then, we won nothing. We just stopped losing." But she was wrong. The galaxy knew what humanity had done. The species that the Council had sacrificed as worthless shields had destroyed the greatest threat in galactic history. While Council species had hidden behind walls and hoped for survival, humans had attacked with everything they had, and one President Han called a new assembly on Earth. Representatives from every surviving species attended, not as allies or partners, but as subjects. The Council was dissolved. In its place rose the Earth Dominion, with humanity at its head. "You may hate us," Han told the gathered representatives. "You may fear us. You may resent what we have become. But know this: under our rule, no species will be sacrificed for another. No world will be abandoned. No, people will be betrayed." She looked out at the faces of creatures who had once looked at humans with contempt. "We do not rule because we love you. We rule because we remember what war truly costs, and we will never let anyone else forget." 100 years had passed since the betrayal at Orion's Gate. The galaxy had transformed in ways that the old Council species could never have imagined. Human ships patrolled every sector. Human laws governed every world. Human culture spread to the farthest corners of known space. Carried by traders and travelers who moved freely under the protection of the Earth's dominion, the species that had once mocked humanity now studied their language, their art, their philosophy. Young aliens on distant worlds learned to speak Korean and English, read human literature, listen to human music. They grew up knowing that the creatures their grandparents had dismissed as primitives now ruled everything. Not everyone accepted this new order willingly. There were rebellions in the early decades, species that tried to restore the old ways, to break free from human control. These uprisings failed, crushed by fleets that appeared without warning through dimensional rifts. But humanity did not repeat the cruelty of the old council. Defeated rebels were given fair trials. Occupied worlds were rebuilt. Conquered species were eventually welcomed into the Dominion as members, not slaves. "We are not the council," President Han had declared in the early years. "We remember what it felt like to be treated as less than equals. We will not become what we fought to destroy." She had lived to see the Dominion's 50th anniversary before dying peacefully in her sleep. Her body lay in a great monument on Earth, surrounded by gardens where children played and families gathered. She had become more than a leader. She had become a symbol. Admiral Unipark outlived her by many years. The injuries from the Battle of the Crimson Nebula had never fully healed. She walked with difficulty, breathed with pain, and spent more time in hospitals than out of them. But she refused to stop serving, refused to rest, while there was work to be done. Now, on the 100th anniversary of the betrayal, she stood at the podium of the academy that bore her name. The Park Military Academy trained the finest officers in the galaxy, not just humans, but representatives from a dozen species who wished to serve the Dominion. They sat before her in neat rows, young faces filled with respect and admiration for the ancient woman at the microphone. They called us violent, Park began, her voice still strong despite her age. And we are. They called us dangerous. We proved them right, but violence was never our defining trait. It was simply a tool we used when we had no other choice. She paused, looking out at the students. In the front row sat a young woman named Hannah Yu, barely 20 years old, with sharp eyes and steady hands. She was Park's great-granddaughter, the latest in a line of soldiers stretching back to the darkest days of humanity's history. What truly defined us, Park continued, was something else entirely. When the Council abandoned us, we had every reason to fall apart. We had every reason to hate each other, to fight among ourselves, to die alone in the darkness between stars. Her scarred hands gripped the podium, steadying herself. Instead, we chose to survive together. We chose to remember our dead not with despair, but with determination. Every name we lost became fuel for our purpose. Every face we mourned became a reason to keep fighting. We built something from our grief that the Council never could have understood. In the audience, Hannah felt tears forming in her eyes. She had grown up with these stories, heard them from her grandmother and her mother, learned them in school alongside mathematics and science. But hearing them now, from the lips of the woman who had lived them, struck her heart like nothing else ever had. The galaxy feared what we might become, Park said. They saw our anger and assumed we would become monsters. They expected us to rule through terror, to crush everything in our path without mercy or wisdom. She shook her head slowly. They were wrong. Not because we lacked the power to become monsters. We had that power. We simply chose not to use it. She straightened, pushing through the pain that never left her. What we became was something different. We became the ones who remember, the ones who protect, the ones who will never abandon those who trust us, no matter the cost. Outside the Academy windows, the sky of Earth stretched blue and endless. Somewhere in orbit, a massive structure circled the planet, a monument made of metal and light. On its surface, carved in letters large enough to read from the ground, were 160,000 names. The soldiers who had died at Orion's gate, the sacrifice that had started everything, every year. On the anniversary, all human worlds observed a moment of silence. Ships stopped in space. Factories went quiet. Families gathered and remembered those who had fallen so that humanity could rise. We were betrayed, Park said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. We fought back. We conquered. We built an empire that spans the galaxy. But our greatest victory was not the territory we claimed or the enemies we destroyed. She looked directly at Hannah, meeting her great-granddaughter's eyes. Our greatest victory was becoming worthy of the stars we now rule, proving that the faith of the dead was not misplaced, showing the universe that humanity does not break, does not bend, does not surrender. She raised her hand in salute, a gesture that had passed between soldiers since the earliest days of human warfare. We endure. We remember. We rise. The hall erupted in response, voices of 100 species joining together in a cry that had been born on a small blue world, spoken first by those who refused to die quietly in the dark. We endure. We remember. We rise. Hannah stood with the rest, her voice joining the chorus. She felt the weight of history on her shoulders, the legacy of her family and her species. Somewhere in her heart, she made a silent promise to those who had come before. She would carry this torch. She would remember the names carved in that orbital monument. She would serve the Dominion with everything she had. Not for glory or power, but because it was right. Because that was what it meant to be human. Outside, stars waited, bright and eternal. They had watched humanity crawl from caves, build cities, reach for the sky, suffer betrayal, and rise again stronger than before. They would watch for millions of years more, silent witnesses to whatever came next. But whatever came, one truth would remain constant. Written in the hearts of every human who ever lived, Earth endures. Earth remembers. Earth will always rise.